Last week's Post reported on an article by Antonio Vieira on the grammatical equivalence of Paleolithic tools. The paper had a second theme which I want to discuss this week. That was the high risk and cost of our, quote, articulate verbal language. I think we could call that just language. It was impressive to see the list that he compiled of all the risks and damages in one place. It's quite a list, actually. The cost of speech. Most of these have been discussed at some point on the blog, but it requires much more food energy to support the brain, and that food energy can't ever really stop. You can quit feeding your body and kind of let the muscles wear down, but you can't let your brain wear down. Another interesting example that he mentioned is the danger of a heat stroke. And, with a species that was originating in the equator regions, that's quite a strong problem. Another one, of course, is well known as the difficulty of giving birth with such a large head. That was resolved by giving birth long before the baby is actually able to support itself. Another one is a lowered larynx, which brings the danger of choking. Now, there are a lot of people who doubt that this has anything to do with language. It could have been lowered as a response to the changing sexual dimorphism, but it is a well-known problem that when you want to speak, you have to allow access to your throat and your lungs, and food can go down and you can choke to death. Another one, this was the new one to me, is articulation of some consonants spreads bacteria and lung disease. I wonder what those consonants are, and if you could find any studies that show that cultures that use those consonants have some reason where bacteria and lung disease is not such a problem for them. And another one, this is very serious, is the increased risk of psychopathology with our complicated brains and all those new pathways in them. And that's quite a high cost to mention it, and I'm glad that he mentioned it. So if with all those costs, the question comes up, why did evolution pay up? And the author answers, we must search for eventual advantages offered by languages that counterbalance such damages. No, I disagree slightly there. I wouldn't use the word eventually advantages. In evolution, the advantages have to turn up right away. He says, of course, these advantages represent the improvement of communication and consequent changes in the social networks of hominin populations endowed with language. Take note of what he says here. Consequent changes in the social networks. So he is definitely going along with something that's strong on this blog, which is that language is a social function. I would even make it a little stronger and say communal function, but of course not everybody agrees with that, but I agree with what he's got to say there. And this puts us with group selection, which builds a community and supports speech. Speakers are willing to tell what they know. Listeners are willing to find out what's on another's mind, both of those aspects of the speech triangle. Speaker A, listener B, willing to talk and listen, which is an important element of the community. And the result of that is it builds an informed community, so that's all good. There is, however, a problem. The price of group selection is paid by rival groups that cannot keep up. And this is probably the pressure that kept promoting linguistic progress. So if one group made a linguistic progress that was important and another group did not, the first group would succeed, and the trait would be selected that way through group selection rather than by the selfish gene method, which has never really been able very good to come up with a good explanation for why individuals use this social network. The thing that this list of cost stresses, however, is that the sacrifices for these costs are paid by individuals. The group as a whole is prospering, and the individuals are being sacrificed. Well, one thing we can say is that this list of costs certainly raises the question of how the creationists can possibly hope to explain that. It does not seem like a great design at all. It's just a terrible price has been paid.